Welcome everybody to the Author's Pen. This is June's video blog post. The topic is, why is it missed? That's an interesting question. Before we get on to our topic though, I'd like to announce that my newest course on udemy.com, the website is below, is entitled, it's a self-help topic, it's entitled Relationships, the Road to Success. It's a great self-help course for people that need to understand a little bit more about their relationship issues. But with that said, I want to mention something that I found very interesting. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was later at night, I was watching the Gutfeld show on Fox News at 11 o'clock. And unfortunately, it was a couple of days after the sad and tragic event in Texas where 19 children and 2 teachers lost their lives. And part of tonight's topic is indirectly about that. But the one thing Gutfeld said that I thought was probably the most truthful thing I've heard any news media host say was that when these things happen, the media just automatically jumps to reporting it, and to the point of sometimes over-reporting it. And unfortunately, the initial reports, the facts aren't true. And the real facts obviously take a little bit of time to come out. And that could be very irresponsible to a certain degree on the part of the news media to do that. And I have to credit him because he also went on to say it's the one thing that news media folks never actually admit, that they could be over-reporting something, which could lead to inciting copycat events and so on and so forth. And I have to commend him on that because it's very true, and I've said that in many of my written blog posts, that sometimes the media over-publicizes things to the point that it could incite the wrong people to do some very, very bad things. And also, the actual facts of something don't come out right away. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't report on it, but I think before they get into a great deal of detail, they should make their initial report and say further details will follow as we get more accurate information. Rather than having the information changed 5 times over a day or 2 period, which really confuses the public. But needless to say, I think that to say that that event wasn't tragic, and it deeply bothered me spending my whole adult life as a first responder and being involved in active shooting events. It troubled me and actually brought tears to my eyes, as I'm sure it has many others. But where does the problem lie? You know, everybody talks about and argues about gun control, and I think it's a shame that so many politicians, including our president, immediately jumped on the bandwagon and tried to make this major tragedy a political platform. It was not the time and the place. I think everybody knows there needs to be gun control changes, and I think most people, even gun owners like myself and people like myself who truly believe in the Second Amendment, agree that there are some changes that have to be made, but somewhere along the line we're missing it. Why are we missing it, and where are we missing it? Well, I've said numerous times as a U.S. Coast Guard licensed master captain, when my license gets renewed every 5 years, I have to have a doctor's form filled out. Any medications I'm on have to be listed, and the doctor has to attest that I am physically and mentally capable of captaining a boat, in order for my boat license to be renewed. Now, with that said, is that a bad idea for gun permits or in background checks? I know a lot of states are getting away from paper permits, and to some degree that makes sense. But gun registration, I do believe, needs to be mandatory. And I think when it comes to background checks, part of that process should be an applicant has to list any medications that they're on, has to be signed off by a doctor. And then once that's all done and that background check is cleared, then they could buy a gun. Now, how will that help? Well, one of the biggest issues right now is there's a lot of young, angry men. And it's a lot of these young men that are doing these school shootings. Now, why are their emotional problems not recognized by somebody? And it's a proven fact that a lot of them come from broken homes and so on and so forth. Well, one of the problems is parents by nature are the worst people in accepting the fact that their children have a problem. They go into denial. No, my son would never do that. My child would never do that. As a first responder and paramedic, there were so many times I had to respond to high school to check out a student who got into a fight or an altercation, and the parents of both sides would be there, and one set of parents would say, my son would never do that. My son would never do that. Well, if everybody's son would never do that, then things wouldn't happen. So evidently, somebody's son does do something. So one of the problems is parents don't recognize, because they don't want to admit to themselves, if their child has an emotional problem or is emotionally disturbed. So oftentimes that goes unnoticed. You add that into a world now where society has reached a point where it's no longer a one-income family. It's not even a two-income family anymore. It's a 2.5-income family because one of the two parents is working a second job. So you have two full-time jobs and a part-time job, and the parents just aren't around that much. So a lot of the things their child does, it's missed. So why do these cases go missed? Because the supervision isn't there. It's that simple. The time for the supervision isn't there. Life doesn't afford parents to have that time, or grandparents or guardians that may be raising children, or children that come from a broken home or from foster homes. These issues just are not recognized, or their friends or their peers blow off things that they say, on social media or around school. Oh, he would never do that. And then the next thing you know, there's a shooting, or in this particular case, that young man, I guess, went to a private chat room. I don't know all the details. And said things privately to a couple of people. But these things go unnoticed, and they should not go unnoticed. I don't want to tell you how many times in my career working on an ambulance as a paramedic, if a child even said in school he wanted to hurt himself or someone else, they called an ambulance, and the child was taken to the hospital for a psychological evaluation. And that's great for when it gets caught, but how about when it doesn't get caught? So an 18-year-old young man goes into a gun store and buys 2 guns. Well, there's a lot of mixed feelings about that. At 18 years old, we'll put a gun in a young man's or a young woman's hand, and we'll ship them off to war to kill someone. But that's okay. That's justifiable. But yet, they can't have a beer. Well, I can understand that. Beer could be a mind-altering substance if abused. Okay. But background checks, they're just too weak. They need to be stronger. All right? They need to be stronger. If you're going to put a weapon in someone's hand or allow that weapon to be in someone's hand, that background check should be stronger. And to me, that doesn't hurt the Second Amendment, because you're not denying them the right to own a gun. You just want to make sure that they're of mental sound mind to be able to own that gun. Because I think even the most highest proponent of the Second Amendment and gun rights would turn around and say that a gun should not be in the hands of someone who's mentally ill. But how do you know it? Okay, how do you know it? You don't. That's the problem. Because someone's background check, if they've never been arrested, never had a felony, it's going to come back clean, and they're going to be able to purchase that gun. But nowhere does anybody know whether they're on any kind of medication for emotional issues or emotional problems. That should be part of a gun background check. I'm a firm believer in that. As firm as I am is in my right to carry arms and the Second Amendment. However, the issue doesn't end there. There's other problems. What about the school system itself? Do they follow their own policies? Let's take the locked door policy. If that door was locked the way it was supposed to be, would that shooting have happened? And why are we so against resource officers, armed resource officers? If the policies are followed and there's only one way in and out of the school, then that person with a weapon would never make it into the school. Are we so worried about our children seeing someone with a gun with all the other violence they see on TV and in the movie theaters? Let's be realistic, people. What price are we going to put on the lives of our children? These are why things get missed. Things get missed because life is hectic, life is busy. People assume things are fine with their children because the short time sometimes that they see them, their children seem to be acting normal. They might be in a bad crowd of kids. The kids may not report with some of the things the children say because no one wants to be a rat, no one wants to be a tattletale. But that doesn't make it right. And all the gun control laws in the world aren't going to fix that problem. Okay? Just isn't going to happen. We allow things to go on social media. That should never be allowed. I've said this before in my written posts, especially on my Twitter account. I get so many requests or friend requests, call them whatever you want. And you open it up and there's a picture of a naked woman doing something to herself or showing off her body. How should a video or something like that even get on social media? All right? It shouldn't. That's the bottom line. We don't have enough controls. Now, I'm not sitting here saying to you that I'm a control freak because I don't believe in censorship on social media, and I also don't believe that freedom of speech or expression should be hindered on social media, and people should be able to have open discussions regardless of their political beliefs. However, things that are unacceptable to me is the nudity and things like that. There are private chat rooms people could go to if they want to do that on the internet, but to be able to publicly put that on there for anybody to see is completely unacceptable. All right? Because the young mind can't process it. All right? And to them, it's a big joke. And one thing leads to another, and then here we are, we have these problems. All right? So we have to do something to answer the question, why is it missed? Right? We are missing something as a society. We are missing something as a people. Our government is missing something. Our leaders are missing something. Everyone knows it, but no one does anything about it. Why? Someone needs to answer that question for me. Why? Because I am not a genius. I am not an Einstein. I'm just a simple everyday man with some common sense. And if I could see it with my level of education and degree of common sense and life experience, why in the hell can the rest of the world not see it? Especially our leaders. Is it that big of a deal to have a medical background check be done on someone in order for them to own a gun? I don't think so. All right? With everything going on in the schools, with all the different school shootings we've had, is it unreasonable to have an armed officer on the premises of every school? Is it as expensive? Is it unreasonable to have someone to walk around to make sure that every door is locked after school closes? I don't think any of that is unreasonable. When I was going to high school, no, you didn't need it. It wasn't necessary in those times. But times have now changed. We have to protect these children, these babies, because that's what they are. 19 children that'll never have lives any longer, never raise families of their own, never experience the joy of living. And then people have the gall to make it a political stand? My God, shame on you. So that's why it's missed, people. The question is, what are our leaders going to do about it? With that said, I wish you all a good night. Be safe, be well, watch your children, and God bless. Thank you.